December 12th, 2013. My
Teacher.
Babysitter.
brother.
Granddaddy.
Classmate.
Dad.
Grandma B.
Papa John.
Friend. Drank her life away.
Said goodbye.
Slipped away in her sleep.
It was a lot of things.
Suffered a seizure.
Succumbed to a stroke.
Took his own life.
Had a sudden heart attack.
Lost her battle with cancer.
Died. I found out when
When I saw him hooked up to all those machines.
When my mom came to my room that morning.
When our principal called us down to the auditorium.
When my dad got off the phone with the nursing home.
when my parents picked me up from the swim.
When Sam ran out of the room.
When my mom started crying, when she poured herself another drink. When my mom said, Daddy isn't coming home.
When a person enters the final stage of the dying process, two different dynamics that are closely interrelated and interdependent are at work. On the physical plane, the body begins the process of shutting down.
Which will end when all physical systems cease to function. Usually, this is an orderly and undramatic progressive series of physical changes.
These events are the normal and natural way in which the body prepares itself to stop. This is just one story.
She kept saying, I'm just tired. I'm just so tired. So I said,
You've got to go to the doctor. You've just got to. Then she said,
My doctor doesn't practice here. Besides, I haven't been sick a day in my life. Then I said,
You have to make an appointment.
Your lab results are in. Your heart is fine, your kidneys are fine, and your liver is fine. But you have a low platelet count.
so thrombocytopenia?
Yes, how did you know?
My Uncle Gary had that.
this could be good or bad.
What's the worst case scenario?
It could be a blood cancer.
The letter came. Here, open it.
The appointment with the specialist
Hematologist, oncologist,
cancer doctor.
wasn't for another 3 weeks. I remember when Gary was sick and he got the same letter.
At least he didn't have to go see Dr. Rodriguez. He only handles the hard cases.
One of the toughest things I've ever had to go through was to watch her end of that phone conversation.
Yes, I have an appointment with Dr. Rodriguez.
3 weeks is a long time to wait to see a specialist.
I've never heard her ask for special privileges. I was wondering if I could.
They didn't move the appointment up. I knew they wanted to.
Okay, I'll see you in 3 weeks then.
It's something lymphatic. I'll be back in 2 weeks for your biopsy.
Then we said,
Well,
at least we have a plan.
The next morning, the phone rang.
Not 5 minutes later, I heard her call up the stairs for me to pick up the phone. No?
it was Dr. Rodriguez.
I have news.
I had another look at your blood work after you left yesterday.
It seems as though your diagnosis is something much different than what we had originally expected.
We have a bed ready for you at Memorial Hospital, where you will be going under direct admit. Welcome! We've been expecting you!
We have a bed all ready for you.
I'll be your nurse. I'll walk you through this admission.
It reminded me of Belle in Beauty and the Beast. And that was only the beginning.
After examining your bone marrow biopsy, we have concluded that you have a disease known as AML.
AML, acute myeloid leukemia.
A cancer of the blood and bone marrow.
If it is not treated quickly, it will spread.
AML is one of the most common acute leukemias among adults. Treatment for adults usually consists of 2 phases.
The first phase of the treatment's goal is to kill the leukemia cells in the blood and bone marrow, putting the leukemia cells into remission.
The second phase is to kill all remaining cancer cells. Though they may not be active, they can still regrow and cause a relapse.
Basically, you're going to stay in this hospital room for 21 to 28 days. We'll give you 10 days of chemo, and then after 3 days, another 10 days, and we'll see where we are. The risks are high. 5% of patients die during treatment. 50% lives to see complete success. Are you up for this?
After we examined the fluid from your lungs, we have determined that you do not have AML, But you do have a lesser-known illness called CLL.
Chronic lymphocytic leukemia.
A cancer that begins in the white blood cells in the bone marrow.
CLL mainly affects older adults and accounts for about 1/3 of all leukemias.
We think that we can put this in remission with 3 days of chemo now, and then a monthly 3-day course over the next 3 to 7 months. Now, this is a much better treatment plan than the one for AML. However, nobody mentioned, all forms of CLL are considered incurable, and therefore, all treatments are palliative.
After reviewing your labs, we discovered that what you have is not CLL, but what you do have is called B-cell PLL.
Pro-lymphocytic leukemia.
It is so rare that it is difficult to assess the approximate survival rates of patients with this disease. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are currently 11 patients in the world with this disease.
We are going to send you to a doctor in St. Louis, and you are going to be put on an experimental drug.
What they didn't say, though, was that this type of leukemia is incurable and very aggressive. Basically, the patient has 3 to 7 months to live after the original diagnosis. We should have known something was up the way the doctor gave us a hug on our way out.
Yeah, he hugged us. Couldn't say he was sorry. Doctors never say, I'm sorry. 3 to 7 months. He couldn't even tell us that. I looked it up myself. Doctors don't like to talk about poor prognoses.
Reasons why physicians do not have discussions about poor prognosis. Reason number 1, it will make people depressed.
Incorrect. In fact, giving patients honest information will help them and their caregivers to cope with the illness better.
Reason number 2, involvement of hospice and palliative care will reduce survival.
That is also incorrect. Multiple studies suggest that survival is equal or better for patients with hospice or palliative care.
Reason number 3, doctors don't like to talk about it because it's hard on them.
Actually, this is correct. Many oncologists find breaking bad news to be stressful, and few find it satisfying.
I just trusted that the doctors were going to treat her for as long as they could, and when they couldn't anymore, they'd let us know. And so, the treatment began.
Labs.
Blood.
Platelets.
Chemo.
Labs. Blood.
Platelets.
Chemo. Labs. Blood. Platelets. Chemo.
Kleenex. The other dynamic of the dying process is that it is on the emotional, spiritual, and mental plane, and is a different kind of process.
The spirit of the dying person begins the final release from the body, its immediate environment, and all attachments. This release also tends to follow its own priorities.
That may include resolution of unfinished business or permission from family members to let go. The doctor said,
There's nothing more we can do. Then I said,
Nothing? And the doctor said.
If it were my family, I would call hospice.
Then she said.
I think it's time we called the funeral home.
And that's when I knew that she knew. She didn't have many more sunrises in her future. Monday, the equipment came. Tuesday, the intake nurses came, and so did a lot of her family.
Wednesday, the hospice nurse came. She wasn't a much use. Because Wednesday was the last good day.
From about 9 to midnight, everything was peaceful. But at midnight, everything took a turn.
She was restless. I did everything I could to tend to her needs.
When she got up, I got up.
she was thirsty. She was hot. She couldn't breathe.
I felt so bad
She needed ice chips.
She needed Kleenex.
She needed a blanket.
And I said,
Dear God, she can't have another night like this.
And then we slept.
I woke up because I thought I heard her say,
It's time, call the priest.
But that couldn't be right. We just saw the priest last week. But then through my sleep, I heard her say it again.
It's time. Help me, please. Then I said, what? Help me.
So I reached out and I grabbed her hands.
And I sat her down on the edge of the bed.
And then I noticed she was messing with her feet.
She was messing with her house shoes.
Then I asked, are you going somewhere? Then she said,
I want to sit in the chair.
I picked her up from the bed and I put her in the chair. Then we turned towards the window to watch the sunrise. And then she started humming. I think it might have been Amazing Grace. Not because she liked the song. But as a matter of fact, she always told me that she never wanted that song played at her funeral. And that was my clue. I knew from that moment I had to help her. So I looked into her eyes and I said, "You're right. We probably waited a little too long. We should call the funeral home, don't you think?" She nodded her head yes. When I got off the phone with the funeral home, I took her hands in mine and I said, "Either George or Jenna will be here today to take care of everything for your funeral, okay?" She shook my hands up and down, and then she shook her head up and down. And then she just
Die.
died. You shall cry.